Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Mike Langford, the mixer, engineer, producer. I guess I probably should have put the mixer part at the end. Welcome back to Let's Mix Live. It is February 17th, 2022. Live stream mix approaches to music. That's what we're here to do. Just clicking a couple things to get going here. Continuing our mix approach to the band Violent Bliss. The song is called Voiceless Siren. I found this. If you're wondering where I got this from, there's a website. If you're a mixer, engineer, or producer, you want stuff to practice on, you want stuff to mess around with, just to see some of the tracking, especially if you're into other genres. There's a website called Cambridge Music Technology. Link is down below if you're watching on YouTube. So that's where I got this from. And again, just showing not what you should do, but what you could do with some of these mixes. I see Mike Patterson's here. Welcome. Justin Smith is here. Welcome. Katie's here. Welcome. All joining us on YouTube right now. We are blasting this out to Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. YouTube's the one I choose if you have to make a choice between the three. Let's get going here. I'm also realizing I have not really talked today. Kind of wake up and get going. It was late night here in the household. Congrats to the Canadian women's hockey team defeating the U.S. 3-2. It was close. It was a lot closer. I know the score looks pretty close, but it was even closer than that. What the actual game was. It was a pretty tight game. So where we left off last time, we were cleaning up the session. I'm just going to turn this down here. We were cleaning up the session. Again, some of it's unnecessary, but just even looking at, okay, everyone can see the screen, hopefully. Just looking at how the screen is laid out here. I just like to clean up some of the tracks so I can kind of see quickly where things are hopping in here. Also, if you've got all this, just for the sake of it, if you had all this stuff in here, like all the actual dead space that's in here, it's a lot more difficult to be able to quickly drop in your timeline, hit tab, and just go over to the next clip. Or vice versa to hit, I do believe it is Option tab. Yeah, Option tab goes the other way. I sometimes don't remember the actual hotkeys. I'm used to just bashing around on the keyboard. So it just kind of makes things a little bit easier for me. And so we did some cleaning up here on the guitars. We duplicated the bass, and we made kind of our own bass amp sound because I do think it was a bass DI sound. And then we have our drums here. Drums are live. They're really well played. They're not timed, but they are really well played. And I was thinking about maybe dropping in some samples for at least our toms, but kind of listening back after, it didn't, not say it bugged me, but it's like, I thought the toms were coming through pretty good. Again, I don't normally mix on headphones or work on headphones, so that's a little bit of a thing for me getting used to, but might do that today. But one thing I did want to do today is just prep the vocals a little bit. And prep for me is tuning and timing. I also want to listen through this song. It's 6 minutes long, so I will listen through the full thing. I will make some notes. I'm going to listen through and make notes while I'm in headphones. I've done the thing that I didn't want to do, which is I took my... Nope, found one. I packed up all my pens that I had for class yesterday. I don't know why. We don't need to write... Like, I don't have anything for them to write down. And a lot of the students, they have their laptop, and they're taking notes in their laptop. If they are taking notes, but I packed up all my pens again, and I luckily found one. So thank you to where we got this. Thank you to Blue Pearl Pet Hospital. BluePearlVet.com. In case I'll give them free advertising. That's fine. Okay, so we've got our date today. Okay, what I'm going to do to get going here. Only thing I've done so far since opening this up last time is I brought back our test tones. Hopefully this actually will act as a reminder for me. If you are listening on headphones, your own speakers, or PA set up, you know who you are, your line array, because you've got that in your house. Be mindful, because sometimes with some of the EQing I'm doing where I'm sweeping around frequencies or just hitting play and things could be loud, I don't want to have any damage on your end. So consider that the disclaimer, to be mindful of your levels and what you're listening on. One thing I've done is brought back our test tones, so that we can hear the levels coming through. So I'll go ahead and select those, hold shift, so I can bring both of those, right click, hide and make inactive. So we still have that over in our tracks over here, but we're not needing to hear that stuff right now. So I want to listen through. I know I want to prep the vocals. So what we can do right now, I'll just hit Command equals. I'll go back to our mix window. I usually leave my first, sorry, I thought it was like raining super hard outside. I usually leave my first inserts module for any corrective stuff, any noise reduction we need to do, or tuning, or anything we need to basically fix with. So I'm going to drop Melodyne in there. If I can do this. There we go. I think it's over here. It is over there. It's in the other pile. Hopefully it's not asking for authorization today. Sometimes it does that, and it's like a headache because the authorization's on the iLock key, and the iLock key is what runs Pro Tools. So it's like, I know that it is there. Okay, so we've dropped our Melodyne, insert on our module here. We're going to hit transfer. I'm going to put this on all the vocals because it can usually grab them all at the same time. So to quickly duplicate those, I'm going to hold Option. I'm using a Mac, by the way. I don't know what the hotkeys are for PC, but it's probably something very similar. I'm going to hold Option. I'm going to click and drag over to the next insert module. Click and drag. When you see the little red button, it means it's ready to look for some audio when it's playing. Also, I'm using a trackball that has extra buttons on it. So there's definitely some things I'll be doing. And someone who's using a traditional mouse with 1 or 2 buttons will be like, what is going on here? That's what's going on. Trackball. Okay, I'm just double checking that these are all here. Where we kind of left off too, on our main mix bus, all we'd have is just a little compressor on there just to kind of use as a speed limit. And then we have a little EQ on here, which I have nothing happening. So I'm going to hit Control and Command, and it's going to make that inactive. It's not doing anything. And we're just using our compression on our main mix bus. Again, just tapping it a little bit just to make sure our levels are not getting out of hand and we're not losing all our headroom. Highly likely I'll set this a little bit better today when I start getting into mix stuff. Again, for anyone that's not familiar, this could be 2 or 3 hours of us messing around with this today. I think those are healthy chunks to work with. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. I've got our markers all dropped in here. This is a longer song, and being kind of prog and metal, and I don't know all of the actual sections of the song, so I did my best to kind of put in what I think it is. So if I need to drop in there, I know where we are roughly. But usually we see like intro, verse 1, pre-chorus, chorus, tag or re-intro or something. But once we get halfway through the song, the tempo changes, as we can see here. We mapped that stuff out last time too. Once we get to that tempo change, it kind of turns a little bit. And at that point, I just start mashing things in as far as the arrangement goes. Justin says, I've already learned more from this than I have from online school this year. I'm happy and sad to hear that, but at the same time, I understand where you're possibly coming from with that. And again, I'm doing this because it's fun for me, because I like mixing. Also, it gives me access to some other genres I might not get access to. But also with the students in my classes, they like just kind of watching me work, and they did enjoy the videos quite a bit. So there's a little bit of silver lining with the way things have been the last couple of years, having to do some remote learning. Okay, so without further ado, and one of my favorite things, a little less chin wagging over here, I'm going to mute my microphone, and then I'm going to make some notes and listen through. And while that's happening, again, this is going to be loading the vocals into Melodyne. So be right back. Patrick says, are you going to be mixing some dubstep? I don't know. If I can find some and it's rad, then yeah. Right, be right back.
Tragedy
Okay, so it's a full listen through. Yeah, I guess 6 minutes and change. So we loaded the vocals into Melodyne. I made some notes. I do have a pen, which helps so I can actually read my notes. The prescription there. So my notes that I had, again, levels are still all over the place. I don't feel like we're into mixing yet. I had that question last time. What point do you feel like you're mixing? It just kind of changes over for me, where you're like, I'm going to stop calling it mix prep at the top, which I'm going to actually go ahead and change that. I have a hotkey for this I made. Call us mix prep 4 for the new day. So I want to prep the vocals, which for me is tuning and timing vocals and any editing we need to do. I think we could use some saturation on the drums just to kind of thicken them up a little bit. But I like a lot of, I don't mind, like I like a lot of what the drums are sound like right now. But again, this is in headphones and this is not in, not on speakers. I think we can add a little bit of dirt through saturation for that. Might augment the toms on the drums. I think the kick drum sounds okay. I might put some saturation on the snare. Usually saturation, for the most part, it can either be a little bit of thickening or a little bit of distortion. I think we can add a little bit of distortion, just kind of fuzz it up a little bit. Might be kind of cool. The top end of the kick drum, I think that can come down a little bit. Again, that's more mixed stuff. And then subs on the kick. I think we can have a little bit more low-end body on those kicks as well. And then, yeah, the vocal outro, I think there's some cool stuff we can do there as well and kind of treat them very different than the actual lead vocals. So anyone that's joining, just strap yourself in for some vocal prep, because this is my least favorite thing to do. I think it makes the biggest difference on a lot of songs. Some vocalists are not a big fan of vocal prep, of tuning and timing and stuff like that. Not everyone, but some people just insist, oh, just keep doing it again until it's perfect. It's not. It's just not. It's just not going to be perfect. So very few people can get close to perfect, but when it really gets down to it, the vibe's there, we can kind of dust it up a little bit and get it where it needs to go. But for the most part, if the vibe's not there, you're already up the creek. If we just needed to mess around with the pitch and time a little bit, then that's easy to do. So just going to go ahead and mute these. And select them all, shift, option, hit mute, and that'll mute all of those. You can make groups for these too, but it's not too much of a headache to just go through and mute that like that. So how I do my vocal prep here. So I've got this at the beginning of my chain. These should all be loaded in as well. You can see at the bottom of Melodyne here, there's little blips here. That's all where the vocals have been loaded in. So I'm using a M1 Mac Mini, by the way, if anyone's curious. Tons of horsepower on this. What does it actually say for system usage? Yeah, so it's not really doing too much there. Total 10% CPU. Oh. It's going to hop in. So how I run this for me, there is a setting called insertion follows playback. What is that, for anyone who's curious? When you hit play somewhere, and then you hit stop, it'll go back to where that was, where kind of you started. But insertion follows playback, where you hit start and where you hit stop, it'll move where that is. So this can be really annoying. If you have, just going to get rid of this for a second. If you have this selected, edit keyboard focus, which I do recommend, it turns a lot of your buttons on your keyboard into hotkeys. N is the hotkey to turn on and off insertion follows playback. And there's a lot of times where people don't know what it's called or why it's doing this, and it's really frustrating, but that's what that is. So because it's right above the space bar is what starts and stops in Pro Tools. So we often just mash it, and if you accidentally hit the N key, then all of a sudden insertion is falling playback. It's not good for anybody. So I use that when I'm tuning, but also what I do as well is I use my pre-roll, and let's just say 1 bar of pre-roll there. And now we can see this little flag over here is turned yellow. When it's white, it's not doing anything. When it's yellow, it's doing something. So it actually will start here, but our insertion timeline is actually over here. So I'm gonna bypass our effects. We just throw those on just to kind of have those built up. I'm trying to not use any of my template stuff for mix and build it as we're going. So I'm gonna hold command and just select those. That turns off our buses that we're going to our short delay, long delay, and our reverb there. So So when I've got insertion follows playback on, if I want to change something, I can quickly just kind of scrub back a little bit. So let's just have a look here. So our audio blobs look pretty good. Again, I've got some extra buttons on my mouse here, or my trackball here. So we can just scrub along, follow along, and make some changes here. So I might be a little bit quiet when I'm doing this, but if you have questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Also, I don't recommend people tune in headphones. I do believe that it's a little bit easier on speakers, but for what we're doing, I'm trying to keep my speakers off because it'll cause phasing issues with the microphone, and it's just bad for everybody. So let's get going here. Also, so these little blobs down here in Melodyne, so that line is what it's identifying as the pitch, and the kind of blob around it is the section, but also how loud it is, like the amplitude of it. So this little bit goes a long way. So I can buy that. So just the before, again, just a little bit goes a long way. So before. And then after. Things up a little bit. It's one more spot.
The silent sleepy moon is right. The silent sleepy. The silent. The silent sleepy moon. The silent sleepy moon. The silent sleepy moon is rising high. The silent sleepy moon is rising. The silent sleepy moon is rising high. The silent sleepy moon is rising high. From sleepy moon is rising high. From the lonely rising high. From the lonely rising high. From the lonely deepest high. From the lonely deepest purple. From the lonely deepest purple, from the lonely deepest purple sea, from the lonely deepest purple seas, the lonely deepest purple seas, lonely deepest purple sea, from the lonely deepest purple sea, from the lonely deepest purple seas, lonely deepest purple seas, the lonely deepest purple seas. Lonely deepest purple seas, just the
It's a little bit of a timing thing there, which is fine.
deepest purple seas, lonely deepest purple seas, just the deepest purple seas, lonely deepest purple seas, lonely deepest purple seas, lonely deepest purple seas, lonely deepest purple seas, just the wind and wave. Purple seas, just the wind and purple seas, just the wind and purple purple seas, just the wind and waves. Purple seas, just the wind and waves and the seas, just the wind and waves and the seas, just the wind and waves and the air with, just the wind and waves and the seas, just the wind and waves and the seas, just the wind and purple seas, just the wind and waves and the air with, the wind and waves and the air, just the wind and waves and the air with salty waves and the air with salt and waves and the air with just the wind and waves and the air with salty sound waves and the air with salty sound, the air with salty sound, the air with salty sounds, 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 salty sounds, the air with salty sounds, the air with salty sounds, the air with salty sounds.
All right, so that's what we're doing, scrubbing through with our vocals. Gemma's here. How's it going, Gemma?
Salty sounds, the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss, in passiveness and bliss, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might sometimes, but the sea sometimes, but the sea sometimes impartial might sometimes impartial might sometimes impartial might not forgive, partial might not forgive, impartial might not forgive, impartial might not forgive, impartial might not forgive, impartial might not forgive, partial might not forgive, seas might not forget, 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 seas might not forget.
If I was paying attention to the view count right now, it'd probably just be dropping and dropping, because like this is the behind the curtain stuff of production that some people are like, really? And it's like, yeah. So when a band's like, can we just do an extra song? And you're like, okay, there might be like another 12 hours, 15 hours of production involved with that song, and a good chunk of it can be vocals. So when the band's like, can we just do an extra song? And the producer is like, no, we can't just do an extra song.
Not forget, not forget, not forget, not forget.
Carmen's saying, this is what I wish we had. What are we wishing we had?
Those stiff waves, round those stiff waves, those stiff waves.
Oh, in class? Well, this is, I think I did well, you probably might remember better than I would. But I thought I did a demo of Melodyne. Sorry about that. I thought I did a demo of Melodyne. I've been trying to do that just to show, but it's like, to me, it's a little bit more advanced production stuff. We're still trying to wrap our heads around EQ compression and just kind of getting a handle on whatever DAW we're using. Things like vocal production stuff, like even using autotune correctly on Melodyne. And even like using triggering programs for drums and stuff. It's a little bit like next stage of things once we get there. But I'm not about to expect to have a class tune vocals. That would be cruel.
Waves, waves, round you, waves, round you slowly, waves, round you slowly decay, waves, round you slowly decay, waves, round you slowly decay, round you slowly decay, round you slowly decay, round you slowly decay, round you.
That could be an edit there. Just how that sounded.
Waves,
on decay.
Round you slowly decay.
Maybe not.
Round you slowly decay. Round you slowly decay. Round you.
Carmen's saying, don't remember it all going over Melodyne. Would have loved this. Okay. Well, I do apologize if we didn't get there in class. We were also like very much in class. And we don't have Melodyne, the computer's there. We're doing it now. We're doing it now.
Waves, round you slowly decay. They rode away. They rode away. They rode away. They rode away. Lonely for it. Lonely for it. Lonely for eternity. 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 Body strong, mind and no face of porcelain. Gentle grip, deadly of porcelain. Body strong, mind and no face of porcelain. Body strong, mind and no face of porcelain. Gentle grip, no face of porcelain. Gentle grip, deadly charm, porcelain. Gentle grip, deadly charm, your certain fate. This primal charm, your certain fate. This primal want, unreal to satisfy. Fate, this primal want, unreal to satisfy. Unreal to satisfy. Unreal to satisfy. Unreal to satisfy.
Okay, it's a good teachable moment here. So this chunk here, so you can see again, that line is the pitch that it's detecting, and then the blob around it is the amplitude of the actual volume of the sound. So what we're kind of missing here, because it's way below this blob here, so what we can do is use this note separation tool. We can use that to separate these blobs here a little bit better. Just kind of click where you think it, well, double click where you think it is, just to kind of split those. Also, sometimes too, where there's like a little bit of scoop up, we need to look at that. So you can sometimes split that into a few more sections as well. So now we got a bunch more blobs to work with instead of one giant one. That's not really where we want it. So we can just highlight that. Just click and drag, highlight, double click. That just snaps it to the grid. Sometimes it's a good place to start.
Unreal to satisfy.
I will say too, once you start tuning stuff, it's a can of worms, and sometimes it's going to sound a little bit like you've tuned it. That being said, just let it go. Get it kind of close and then let it go, because you might go back and dust over a couple other spots if they're jumping out at you too much. But don't stress, because like sometimes you do hear that you've tuned it because you've needed to fuss around with it a little bit. So there's a couple other ways we can do it, but just to block it in right now for what we're trying to do, because I can do this for 2 hours and then everyone's like, wow, that was 2 hours of vocal tuning.
Hungry, this primal want, I'm your certain fate. This primal want, unreal to satisfy.
Can buy that. So we're starting over here now. I'm just going to hit save on that. I usually have my autosave set. What do I have it set to right now? Options. I can never remember where something. Preferences. I usually have it set to 1 minute when we're working. Yeah, 30 backups every 1 minute. Sometimes it does make Pro Tools crash, it seems, but I'd rather have it. Yeah, I'm used to Pro Tools crashing, but I'd rather have it crash than it was saving in the background. But especially when you're tuning or mixing and stuff, a lot of things can happen in a minute. So it's good to have that auto backup on. But do remember, Command S, save, and saved often.
I look for answers in the depths.
I love that part when they change the groove on the drums.
For answers in the depths. For answers in the. I look for answers in the. I look for answers in the depths. I look for answers in the depths. I listen to in the depths. I listen to in the depths. I listen to my in the depths. I listen to my quick and aching breath. Listen to my quick and aching breath. I listen to my quick and aching breath. My silent song, my aching breath. My silent song, aching breath. My silent song, my throat, my silent song, my aching breath. My silent song, my aching breath. My silent song, my throat, my chest. My silent song, my throat, my chest, my song, my throat, my chest, my silent song, my throat, my chest, silent song, my throat, my chest, my silent song, my throat, my chest, my voiceless, my calling, there is my voiceless, my calling, there is only muted wind, there is only voiceless, my calling, there is only muted wind. There is only muted wind. There is only voiceless my calling. There is only muted wind.
All right, same thing here. There's a big giant blob here. There's a little bit of a dip down at the end. That's the way I think it should go, and it does make sense. One tool I do want to mention here is this pitch modulation tool. So when you see that line starts to wiggle a little bit, that's our vibrato. I half joke, vibrato is the difference between singing and yelling. But if we want to bring the vibrato down a little bit, that pitch modulation tool, we can flatten it. We don't want to do that, but sometimes if it's a little too... because again, you can see it kind of drawing back and forth across the notes here. But also, if we want more vibrato, it's not what we want. But again, I'm just showing you what the tool can do here. So let's just finish up this section. Just that spot in there, we can probably bring that back a little bit. Again, that little dip down's fine. Just want to iron this a tiny little bit. Again, we know we're tuning stuff, but it's one of those things where just let it go and then listen later on, and you might just have a couple spots you kind of fix. Also, once the artist or the client hears it, sometimes they'll tell you what's jumping out to them, and you can go back to the original and dust that over. Katie's saying, it sounded like somebody shook her when you turned up the vibrato. Yes. maybe that's what they should have with tuning program. You'll have like a slider that says shake and calm. So it's just, hopefully that's not a terrible image for anybody, but I like the snare drum a lot. I'm just listening to now. Okay, so we've just going back out here. If I hit Option A, we can zoom out. So we're halfway through this now-ish. We're into after where the tempo changes. So it didn't take too long to kind of get there. There's a lot of spots to go through for tuning, but the big ones, like 70% of this is going to be this lead track here. So I'm going to zoom back in. So I'm going to hit T on the keyboard because I can. And then click on Melodyne. So it's going to follow the playback there.
Still looking back, now all this time.
Just separating some of these regions here. Can you just select everything and nail it all to the grid? Yeah, you can do that. But I like just going through in sections. Again, it's a bunch of different ways to work. Whatever's comfortable for you.
Still looking back, now all this time, all this times, hungry for life, and full of pride, just and full of pride, and full of pride, just exaltation, this rotation, this sinful soul, sinful soul, this sinful soul, this sinful soul, sinful soul.
Love the bass still too. So there's a couple spots here. We can just separate those. We can get access to them. Sound pretty good though. Let's come along. Something funky going on there, so I'm just gonna undo that. So yeah, something got deleted there. One of the notes got deleted.
Just with oblivion, with oblivion, just 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 with oblivion, with oblivion, with oblivion, with oblivion, just with your deadly melody, your deadly melody, your deadly melody.
Thought Pro Tools was gonna Pro Tools there. It was feeling like it. Didn't.
Your whim. Your whim. Your whim. Your whim. Your whip. 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 Your grip. Your whip. Whim. Your whip. Your grip. That's your grip. That's
So that note there. Sometimes you just have to pick a melody that kind of works, which probably sounds pretty obvious, but sometimes it could be really subtle which melody, which note. Are we going for the G flat there? Are we going for the F to G flat? Or are we going from that to the G? Or are we going from the E to the F? You just kind of pick what sounds good. The band or the client, they'll tell you what they were meaning to do after they hear it, because it'll sound either right or wrong to them. So. That should start earlier to me. Starts late.
About 20 silence is more fair. 20 silence. About 20 silence. About 20 silence. About 20 silence. About 20 about 20 silence. 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 About 20 about 20 silence is more fair. 20 silence is more. About 20 silence is more fair. Silence is more. About 20 silence is more fair. Silence is more fair. If silence is more fair.
I think this is getting into the outro where it's the big held notes. I'll probably treat this stuff all differently at the end with some more effects and more sauce and stuff. But we'll just treat it all we'll tune it all on the same track for now. Might be an edit there. We'll sort that later. Actually going to make a note of that. It's around 221. So a little bit of a hop or hiccup there. 220. Pro Tools? Oh. This is actually a lot easier than it looks once you get to this stuff, because it's like the notes are pretty clean. It's just a matter of messing around with the timing a little bit sometimes. That whole section there is a little bit of a dip, but it's like, I don't think it should dip that much. So let's just pull that back a little bit. We are getting there. We are getting there. All right. So that is the whole song. The whole song. What I would normally do, which I probably should do because it is the lead vocal, normally what I do is scrub through one more time. Just to kind of listen to anything jumping out. You don't need to listen to all the gaps here and stuff, so it's a lot quicker than you think. So let's just have a listen through. Just kind of dust over anything else that's jumping out.
The silent sleepy moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. Salty sounds. The air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. Not forget.
And we'll skip ahead. Computers.
But the sea waves round you slowly decay. They rode away, lonely for eternity. Body strong, mind and no face of porcelain. Gentle grip, deadly charm, your certain fate. This primal want, unreal to satisfy.
That spot was jumping out when we were tuning it, but it sounds fine to me now.
I look for answers in the depths. I listen to my quick and aching breath. My silent song, my throat, my chest, my voiceless, my calling. There is only muted winds.
Spot in there still. It jumps out to me because I know we pulled the curtain back on it, but probably sound fine in the mix at that point.
Still looking back, still looking back. Now what is time's hungry for life.
Just want to grab that.
For life, hungry for life, and full of pride, and full of pride, just exultation, full of pride, and full of pride, just exultation, this sinful soul.
Okay. Couple things here. Pro Tools. Parts like that too, you can be really fussy about it. I wouldn't lose too much sleep over it. Just as far as all the different phrasings that could be.
What if silence is more fatal?
There's that little blip there at 220. We'll look at that after. Edit there. It's understandable. These are big notes, so people need to breathe. But it's things like that where if I was to punch that in, if you want it to sound like one voice, it'd say, let's sing through both of those. We'll do our punch over here where we don't need to breathe, and then that's just me. It's fine though. All right, cool. So we got our vocals in. We got that dusted over with tuning. Next thing that I would do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say duplicate. I'm going to change the end of that track name. My naming convention, C means it's a comp, T means it's tuned or time. So that way with our playlists, we'll have all the different versions of things. So that's right out of the gate, the actual raw track there. That's our comp that we were working with, and then our tuned one. Now, all of our information, everything we've done is actually sitting in Melodyne right now. So I'm going to hop over to our mix window. I'm going to hold Control and Command. I'm going to deactivate. I'm going to deactivate all those plugins. Reason being, all I want to do is copy or, I guess, transfer this Melodyne track. So what we can do is right-click, go to Commit, and then this is going to bounce this track down. So anything that was on our inserts, it would bounce with it. So I want to turn off all our effects. I just want to get Melodyne. What we had to do before is actually take that track and bus it to another track and then arm that track and then record that track in real time. Now we don't need to do that anymore. We can just deactivate our tracks. Because this would have taken 6 minutes and 50 seconds to actually do this in real time. So if a band's wondering, that's how much time it would take to actually sit through this entire thing and transfer. But we can just do commit it and it just chews through it in the background. So now we got our track down here. So we've already made our new playlist for our vocals. So one of the things I like to do as well is, this is just me, is just some of these breaks here, just so I can look at it. I'll just go through and do a little bit of that. Again, this is personal preference stuff. Then I'll just I don't even know the hotkeys for these because I just kind of bash buttons. Is it Command A? Yep. And then Command X to cut. And then because we've got this button selected over here, our keyboard edit keyboard focus, P and semicolon, we can go up and down from our track. So I'll just hit P to go up, hit Command V to paste it. So now we've pasted over our tuned vocals. You can see right here too, you can see the name of it, voxlead.ct. All that stuff is changed there. So we've got that copied up there now. I'm just going to go and delete this track because we don't need it. There's nothing on it. I'm going to deactivate our Melodyne. So Control Command to deactivate that and then reactivate all those. So now we've got our tuned vocals in there as well. While we're here, it was 220. There was something funky going on there. So I'm just going to drop in over here. right there, there's something going on. So there's a couple things we can do to address this. So maybe we can actually just cut that and just paste it over. This is really energy efficient, so we'll see if that works. Nope, that sounds like trash. So another thing we can do here as well, maybe just fade in a little bit on that. Also grab, also maybe just grab that one. So we'll do this. I think someone's making lunch upstairs. We can just grab this one, maybe just paste that one on. And buy that one. Again, once you open the can of worms of vocal production, it doesn't take long to just keep picking away at things. So that's the lead track. Let's look at our other tracks here. Sometimes I don't need to actually listen to the rest of the tracks. Like against the music, I can just tune everything against the actual lead. But there's just a few spots here, so let's look at those as well. I usually have my vocals pretty loud too. I don't know how loud they are outside of headphones. For what it's worth, I'm just going to, on Melodyne, I can just hit Command A to select everything. And then I'll just go to our pitch correction and just kind of snap everything. Because we've done our leads, so we're just doing our backing vocals now. So maybe save a step and just kind of dust over this stuff that way. I'm going to turn back on our pre-roll. Hotkey for that is Command K. And then also turn back on our insertion follows playback so we can scrub along, and that is N.
The silence. The silent sleepy moon.
Let's go to the next section. Whoa!
Body strong, mind and no face of porcelain. Gentle grip, deadly charm, your certain fate. Grip, deadly charm, your certain fate. Gentle grip,
Just need to listen to this.
body strong, mind and no face of body strong, mind and no face of porcelain. 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 Gentle grip, deadly charm, your certain fate. Gentle grip, deadly charm, your certain fate. Gentle grip, deadly charm, your certain fate. This primal want, fate. This primal want, your certain fate. This primal want, fate. This primal want, unreal to. This primal want, unreal to satisfy. Want, unreal to satisfy. Satisfy. Unreal to satisfy.
This one's kind of tricky. Just get it close. You can get it perfect. You can also get it close. They'll probably do similar things. Nope. We're far away from where we want to be.
Still looking back, now looking back.
Gotta check the song.
Still looking back, now what it
Yeah, because it makes sense now. Getting there. We are getting there.
But what if silence is more fatal?
Pat is saying Langford deserves a Juno for his quality of work. You don't get Junos for editing. You get it for engineering. You get it for producing. Again, this is for educational purposes and possibly entertainment. If people enjoy watching people in pain tune vocals, I'm just joking. Again, it's my least favorite thing to do, but I also realize how important prepping your vocals and drums are going to be to your overall product. I have faith in what this is going to sound like, but what I would normally do is listen through quickly, which I should. This is real life. All right, got through that. Just spots. We'll be hopefully done in a half hour. We'll spend like half of today tuning vocals. I would normally be tightening up this section too for phrasing, but it's not too bad. Also, there's other tools we have to do that. Some people do it by hand. I draw the line there. You can use vocal line or something. I like those toms.
Your whim, your whip, your grip, that's with the most. But what if silence is more fatal?
All right, that sounded pretty good. Same thing. I'll deactivate all the plugins that are there. Hotkey for committing tracks is Shift Option C, and just hit OK on that. That's going to bounce all that stuff down on that track for us. This is where I go through and cut out the stuff in the middle. It makes a little bit more sense because there's a lot of big gaps there, and I just like being able to see where the actual clips are. If I want to hit tab in between them, we'll quickly go to the next clip. No fires online on Thursday afternoon. That is excellent. In the chat, what are you thinking of this so far? This is all the things that people don't usually get to see. Even the bands don't get to usually see this stuff. They just assume they laid down the tracks. Again, there's a lot of good qualities about this vocal, but a lot of bands they lay down their track and then, hit the bar after. I guess more than the before times, but they'll go and praise their talents and abilities after the recording session. And the engineers and editors, they hang back. They put it all together. And the next day, people come in. Everything's magically sounding awesome. Let's delete those. All right, on to the next one. Just leave everything up, volume-wise. Try to match those a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to solo those. Again, I'll just highlight all of them so I can just hit Apple A. Sorry, Command A. I'm old school. Command A, and then just go to our pitch correction and double tap that. Snap everything to the grid, and we'll go from there. Gemma's got to head out. See you later, Gemma. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully it wasn't something you didn't want to learn.
The silence sleep.
Okay, so now this is all foreign to me, but enjoying watching the process. It's interesting to see how much work goes into music. Lots, just like movies. Like tons of work goes into it.
Your whip, your grip, that's with the most. silence is more fatal.
All right, a lot going on there. I'm gonna have faith in that. That's gonna sound what it needs to. It's gonna commit those tracks. I also don't tune vocals this quickly usually because I usually have Walking Dead or something on off to the side, or like a video game playthrough or something. So what takes this like 20 seconds of waiting for it to process, I'll be watching something on the other TV. So, or if it's later at night, I'll have the hockey game on or something like that. Usually, again, you gotta, what's referred to, you gotta feed yourself cookies through some of these things that aren't your favorite tasks to do that need to get done. Also, if I have a whole bunch of vocals to tune, my lovely wife knows what I look like after, but I'll just sit and do a whole bunch in one day. Just to kind of, that way when I wake up the next day, it's like magically done. So I'll make a new playlist here, .ct, because it's comped and tuned. I'm going to cut out all stuff in the middle that's there. Cut that, paste that. I'm using a trackball. That's why it's a little bit quicker. All right, there's a few more here. Home stretch.
Only deepest purple seas, just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds.
Oh, and it's all kind of one note. I like it. I like that.
Only deepest purple seas, just the wind and waves and the air with the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds.
By that.
In the waters of the sea.
We'll just wait. We'll wait for this bus here.
Bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial, sometimes impartial, might not forgive. Partial might not forgive. Partial might not forgive. Impartial might not forgive. Partial might not forgive. Seas might not.
It's tough because those.
Not forgive. Partial might not. Impartial might not forgive. Impartial might not forgive. Impartial might not forgive. Impartial might not forgive. Passiveness and bliss, but the sea and bliss, but the sea sometimes, but the sea sometimes impartial might. Sometimes impartial might not forgive.
Okay, it's tricky because there's a few notes that rub a little bit, so you're trying to figure out should the note go up or down. I'm gonna listen to the first section again. Against the music.
Purple seas, just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. The air with salty sounds.
Yeah, sounds better. Next section.
The sea waves.
Okay.
The sea waves. The sea waves. The sea waves. The sea. The sea. The sea waves. Round you slowly. Round you slowly decays. Round you slowly decays. Round you slowly decays.
Okay, it's a bit of funky stuff going on here, but we'll figure that out.
The sea waves. Round you slowly decays. Round you slowly decay. Round you slowly decay. Round you slowly decay. Round you slowly decay. Round you slowly decay.
So we really hammered that vibrato there, or I guess that inflection at the end, but we just needed to sit in the track. So there's a little bit of funkiness going on with some of the notes there. Again, sometimes it gets buried in the song and we kind of don't hear it that much when we're tracking. So this is all normal stuff. But when we're going over it with the fine-tooth Melodyne comb, we need to just make it do something to help add to the track and not just be texture.
Round you slowly decay. They rode.
Sharp.
They rode away. They rode away.
Again, we just highlighted everything and nailed it to the grid. So that's going to pull things one way or the other. So
Body strong, mind and no face of porcelain. Strong mind and no face of porcelain. Strong mind and no face of porcelain. Gentle grip, deadly charm, your certain fate. Gentle grip, deadly charm, your certain fate. This primal won't, 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 unreal to satisfy. Won't, unreal to satisfy. Unreal to satisfy. Unreal to satisfy. Won't, unreal to satisfy. Unreal to satisfy. Unreal to satisfy. Won't, unreal to this primal won't. Unreal to satisfy. Won't, unreal to satisfy.
I can buy that. Moving on. Okay, says I come from a musical family. My dad can play drums, guitar, bass, sax, French horn, and he can sing. All my brothers play guitar and sing. One of them has recorded a few songs. No, there's a lot goes into recording. Musical families are fun. Like I think having families that have creatives in it, like
Still looking back, now what is
there's a lot to be said about it. Household.
and full of pride, just exultation. I just exultation. This
Kind of roll with that.
This sinful soul, full soul.
Can buy that. Next. You can move notes quite a bit in Melodon. You can bring them 2, 3, 4 semitones sometimes and make it do your bidding as far as, especially when it comes to harmonies and stuff like that. So, my opinion. Okay, last chunk.
Your whim, your grip, that's
That stuff, I'm just kind of lining it up the way that I hear it. So, if you're wondering.
But what if silence is more
All right, thinking by that, I'm going to just have faith in those. That is what we wanted. I'm just going to duplicate that. Commit those tracks. With some songs too, you might have a lead vocal. The choruses might have doubles or triples, and then you might have octave downs, and then you might have, 2, 3, 4 sets of harmonies. So you can get a lot of vocals stacked up on some productions as well. So there's not a ton of vocals to worry about on this one. So we might have been doing this now for maybe an hour and 15 minutes. So it's not uncommon to spend, 2-3 hours on a song just prepping the vocals. Also, consideration, you might be comping as well. So if you're doing that, and yes, I know anybody at home that's watching, I can use strip silence to do this as well, but this is therapeutic for me, so I'm going to do me. Yes, you might spend 2-3 hours tuning a song. If you're comping it, you might have another hour or two of just putting all the parts together for certain things. And especially if you're not flying or copying and pasting certain sections around, that can add a lot of time as well. So you might spend, 4, 5, 6 hours just comping and tuning and prepping stuff. And that's the stuff the band does not see. Last little chunk here. Let's highlight all of it. Pitch correct. Snap to the grid. Okay, there's a lot going on there now vocally. Yep. I'm just listening to how it sounds in the track overall. If it's not jumping at me too much, good. I can believe in that. Same thing. Deactivate all those plugins. Duplicate this. Switch that over .ct. I'm going to commit those tracks. Casing, I can sing and play French horn, but I never thought about what goes in behind the scenes. Yep, no, that's a big part of what this is going to be on Let's Mix Live. Patterson's saying, when are you Guns, Mike, Demore, Ravens, Blue, and Parable Mike? Probably not. Probably not ever work on those ones here. Different projects. Again, I'm just grabbing stuff off of that Cambridge Music Technology site. There's tons of fantastic stuff there for educational purposes. Okay, so we got our vocals kind of prepped here. Just for fun, I'm going to turn back on our effects. Harrison says, why not? Because those are different projects. Those are not projects for this type of these types of live streams. I'm just going to listen through. Just going to try to balance things a little bit. So that sounds better to me.
The silent sleepy moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas.
I don't know. I just put these effects on just to get them blocked in. We got work to do there, though.
In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss, but the sea sometimes impartial might not forget.
Wrapped up in my headphone cable.
Seas might not forget.
One of the things about when you do prep your vocals is you can put your vocals louder in the mix. One of the, I don't say rule of thumb, but one of the things that I've noticed over the years is the more in tune time and the quality of something is better, the louder it can be and not be distracting. So with vocals especially, I do recommend dust over them, comp them, little tuning, little timing. It's going to go a long way. That being said, if the emotional element's missing, you're already halfway up the creek with half a paddle, so. Just want to go over here.
Your sweet oblivion, your deadly melody and charm. No other world reveals, no doubt just taking like the simple thirst.
Yeah, so that's all sounding better to me. Let's make another version here. Let's go to prep 5. Doesn't matter how many of those versions are on there. Okay, so next, a vocal tune. I can Actually, I'm going to scratch it out because I like to do that. The drum stuff, it's not bugging me that much. Also, we're an hour and a half into this now, so I'm just trying to think of what else I want to do. So there's a couple different ways to approach the drum stuff. I'm just going to have a quick listen here. And turn off our pre-rolling and turn off our insertion follows playback. I feel like there's a little bit more low end we could get from that kick drum. So maybe let's EQ our kick out. Just to get some of the subs from it. Again, I'm pretty heavy-handed with my filters. Let's see if we can just add that in. I still feel like we're missing what I'm looking for, but give me a second. I just want to listen on speakers for a second, just a couple things. Okay, so there's a couple things I want to just, we're here, because you can kind of see what's going on. Patterson's, I have to roll out, getting tired, but late nights, early mornings. Oh, I hear you. Have a good rest of your day, Patterson. Be safe. Don's, hey, Don, how's it going, Don? Just popping in and say hello. Hello, Don. You missed the fun stuff. I hate to break it to you. You have to rewind at least an hour and a half, see all the fun stuff. Okay, so this is kick drum here. We could fart around with the kick drum a bit more, but there's a couple things we can do here as well. One of the things that is not uncommon to use is a plugin called Trigger. I have templates that I use on a lot of my mixes just to kind of quickly get to where I want to go, but I think let's spend a few minutes just so we can show the folks at home how it works. So we have our kick drum here. We're missing subs from it. I'm missing subs from it. It sounds okay, but we're missing subs. Don says I'll definitely watch it later. Okay, I'm half joking. You did not miss the fun stuff. Last hour and a half. Katie's probably laughing right now. So we got our kick drum here. Nice kind of clean transients here. that you can see. There's clean transients there. But what we're going to do, just going to move, we're about to get serious here, so I'm just going to move my notepad out of the way. So there's a couple things we could do. We could lay in samples. We could actually bring in kick drum samples and lay those across, but we can use plugins like Trigger, where we can trigger off of the sample to bring in another kick drum. So I'm going to bring in a mono track. And how I label my stuff is I usually just do _kick. That tells me that it's the trigger sample we're working with. What I would do is just grab one of these kick drum samples here. So let's grab this one. And we can just zoom in. So R and T is how we zoom in when we've got our keyboard shortcuts. Let's go to the beginning of this sample. I'm going to grab it. That looks about good. I'm going to copy that one. I'm going to hit return to go back to the beginning of the session. And just because of my own sanity, I'm just going to hit fade on that. Fade that out, and then I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to hit Shift Option 3. So this makes it its own little clip here. So we've actually made a kick drum sample that we can work with. I'm going to hit Tab to Transient. I do believe it is that one. Just testing people at home. So with Tab to Transient, if we hit Tab, it'll go to the beginning of the clip or the beginning of the next obvious transient that it sees. If this is not selected and you hit Tab again, it'll go to the end of the actual audio clip, or the end of the section that you have there, or any breaks that you have. So we're gonna go Tab to Transient. Because we've got our keyboard shortcut focus thing, I never remember what it's called. P and semicolon, that's how you go up and down, and then L and apostrophes, how you go left and right. So we can go over to the right and go to the transient that's there. And we've already loaded up this transient. So we're going to I don't know if I did actually. I'm going to double click it. I'm going to hit Command C to copy it. I'm going to go to the first transient, and then I'm going to hit semicolon to go down. I'm going to hit V to paste, then back up with use P, and then apostrophe to go to the right, and then back down, and then paste the sample there again. So what we're doing is we're pasting in these kick drum samples, because we're going to use Trigger to run off those samples. And you may be asking yourself, that's going to take forever. You're not asking yourself. I guess if you're asking yourself, you'd be saying, how long is that going to take? But if you're saying to yourself, that's going to take forever, you've already kind of skipped ahead. There's a couple, there's lots of different ways people work them. This is one of the ways that I learned, and it works for me. Again, I've got Walking Dead or something off. I like zombie movies and zombie TV shows. I'll have something off to the side. I'll be listening to demos for other projects while I'm doing stuff like this. So it just takes a second to go through. And again, these are really nice clean transients here, so it's pretty easy. Sometimes you just need to listen for a second to what's going on. The longer you do this stuff too, the more you can kind of read what the transients are likely telling you. Like I can see where there's that little pickup there. I'm sure there's a more technical musical term for that little kick before. You can go in and mess with the velocities and the volumes of these. I don't think it matters that much, especially how loud kick and snare are in most songs. So again, I'm just looking for some of the sub kick frequencies, because if it wasn't recorded, it's not there, and I'm not hearing it in the headphones. I'm not hearing it in the speakers either. So just gonna go through. Oh, we're in the abyss. Don says, I'm sure I missed some fun stuff. Later, Mike, have an amazing day. Have an amazing day, Don. I'm trying to keep these to 2 or 3 hours, but you can see how long we spent just prepping the vocals and stuff today. So this might be a 3 or 4 part episode, which I don't mind. Again, there's people that appreciate this. That's a fill. See, that little kick drum there probably wouldn't get picked up very much. But when we drop the sample in, then we can make sure we get that. It's into fill. So we're a minute into this 6-minute song. Most songs are in that 3 to 4 minute range. But that being said, it doesn't make a difference because it could be a punk song and be 2 minutes, and there could be a boatload of kick drums in that song and a boatload of snare drums in that song. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Oh, we're in the abyss. We're in the abyss. That happens sometimes. You just lose where you were. I'm sure someone who has like a channel where they do painting, they're just like, this is like watching paint dry. If it's programmed drums, this is really easy because usually there's just silence between all the kick drum samples. But you're hearing the drums as they're recorded because there's always bleed from all the different instruments. Instruments being all the different drums that are around when you're recording a live drum kit. I'll say too, some drummers are really against the idea of using samples. And it kind of blows my mind because I'm like, for modern recordings, it usually makes it sound cleaner and better. And I always think of the production stuff, it's just hair and makeup for photos and video and stuff like that. You kind of don't notice after, like you can pretend what you want to do, but you'll notice after and you'll probably have some regrets about some of the production stuff if you're fighting it just out of principle of like, oh, we shouldn't be doing that. And there's some mixers as well that just like, oh, you know, samples, like it's cheating. Or it's like, no, it can make it better and it can definitely help your workflow. So. But we're just playing around here, so. Probably adding more confusion too for some people. Like, what do you do? I put kick drum samples in. Did they not play it? Yeah, they did. But we needed more kick drums. And like when I see people that put, and I'm not calling anybody out because they've got a reason for it, but when they have like 6 microphones on a kick drum, and deep down I'm like, you're gonna augment those kick drums with samples. So just you could probably max it out at 2. You could put one microphone in the kick drum and put another microphone outside the kick drum, and call it a day. I think everyone's going to be satisfied with those 2 sources, but also the drummer's going to be pacified if they think you're giving that much attention to their kick drum and you're not really going to use some of the microphones anyways because you're going to throw some samples on it. Better yet, if you recorded different studios and you need to make it sound a little more uniform, then you can lean on those samples to make it sound a little more uniform. I'm waiting for the view count to just plummet. People are hanging in there though. All right, we're 2 minutes and 30 seconds into this 6-minute track. So we're actually not doing too bad right now. Probably should have had a timer going. So we'd be getting around the end of it for most tracks. Especially too, if it's a slower tempo, you're gonna have the kick drums spaced out a bit more as well. So like all those things do play into it. So sometimes you can drop all your samples in like 20 minutes. And sometimes you might spend, you know, half an hour, an hour actually dropping all this stuff in. But it is production stuff that does help. If I had like advertisements, this would be a good time for running those right now, or commercial breaks, but we're not going to do that here. That little kick, that would get mixed, or sorry, that would get missed probably overall in the mix. All right, so we got through the first section, the first half of the song. We're getting to the second half of the song now. So our tempo did slow down. So it's a little bit more defined with the little pickup kicks that are there. And I'll show you a trick after, if I remember, with some of those kicks that have velocity changes on them. By doing this method where we have kind of our main kick sample that we're working with, we can just change using clip gain. When we're using programs like Trigger, you can just change the clip gain on the actual sample, and makes it a little bit easier to make those fine adjustments if something's not sounding right. I don't want to say not making sense, but just not sounding right. And the same thing, we can do this with toms and snare drums as well, and it can sound pretty good. We can also do this with cymbals. If the cymbals that you're using, or there's something about the quality is not what you want, you can maybe not to say sound replace, but you can augment the cymbals, because all you need is a sample for it to trigger off of. So if you know where the cymbals are happening, the crashes in particular, you can just drop samples and use programs like Trigger to add those cymbals in. I very often add my own crash cymbals into mixes because I think they sound smoother if I want the crashes louder. And that way I don't have to bring up the overheads on the drum kit, which will bring up all the drums as well that are in the overhead mics. If I just want the cymbals, then I'll just grab the samples and bring those up a little bit. I think what I'm saying is everything you believe is not real with the recordings. Like pretty much everything can be replaced. We have the idea, but we're focusing on the sonics. So, all right, we're 4 minutes into 6-minute track. I'm like partially calmly panicking because I'm like, I haven't actually built something, a sample thing in Trigger like from scratch in for years. So I'm like, hopefully I remember how to actually put that together. It's pretty straightforward. And we'll look for a couple samples. We're just looking for kind of the lower end sub sound, because I'm not really hearing it on the kick in or the kick out microphone. So but there's a bunch of engineers and editors that can watch someone do this and just be like, it's calming and anxiety inducing at the same time. One of the things too about using a sample from the actual track, because again, we're just using a little tiny clip of it. Sometimes the transients match up a bit better. So when we go through the next step in this process. It can make it a little bit easier to identify things that are correct and incorrect. Karma says, this part seems tedious. Yep, but this is a way to do this. And it's one of those things when people are like, why does that sound so much better than my stuff? And it's like, it's these things. It's vocal comping, it's vocal prep, it's drum prep, it's timing, it's comping drums. It's all these things keep the good stuff in the stew, so to speak. And it's all the stuff, and the band doesn't want to see this stuff. So when they're like, can we just do an extra song? And they're just like, it's a quick song. It's only 3 minutes. And we know it really well. And you're just like, internally, you're like, I know, but I don't care, because you don't know how much time actually goes into getting stuff sounding the way that we're wanting it to sound. So there's a big difference between doing 3 songs and 4 songs, or 4 songs and 5 songs. Because you can spend, from start to finish, like you can spend 20 to 40 hours on production, like recording and production and mixing and stuff like that. And if you're not sure about how much time it takes, that extra song can add quite a bit of extra work. That being said, if you're recording drums, get as many as you realistically can. You usually get through maybe 3 or 4 songs a day. If you're hustling, good luck with how many you're trying to do in a day. Oh, out of the universe here. Oh, Carmen, one thing about this being tedious, like with computers these days, you're not waiting for the computer to catch up. That was the other thing that was frustrating. I'd say back when I was starting, because I would skip ahead to the next transient, and then you'd get the spinning color wheel, and you'd have to wait for the computer to catch up. And that's frustrating, because you can only work at the speed of the computer being able to zip through stuff. So now we're pretty good. Pro Tools can crash at the drop of a hat pretty much still, but I'm outside the universe. I don't even know where I am. There we go. Let's go back there and zoom in. So I missed this one. Tab to transient works forwards and backwards too. Sometimes you won't actually catch the transient. It'll go past it and just go back. Just hit L to go back one, and sometimes it'll grab that. That being said, sometimes it doesn't grab it at all, and then you've got to manually place it. That's tedious. So we've just dropped in all of those samples. Every time the kick drum was hit, as far as we know, we went and dropped a sample. So the next part of this that I would recommend doing is we're going to zoom in. I'm going to turn off tab to transient. I just want to go through the clips. So we're kind of looking to make sure these samples and the actual kick drum are fairly time aligned. I don't lose sleep over them not being exactly time aligned or like phase locked. I've yet to hear a song get worse because they don't have phase locked kick drums. Just saying. So what we're going to do is just kind of zip through. This is where it gets tedious. Also, we can do sometimes as well is hold Command and Option and then close bracket, and that'll make the that'll increase the view of the actual waveform. So then we can start zipping through some of these as well. And we're looking for anything that looks really wrong. And you know when you see it, when it's way out with the way the transient is. So again, I've got movie on, I've got TV show on, I've got music on. Things like that as well, where there's a little bit of pickup there. Those are times when we could go through and we could bring that sample down if we really wanted to. I'm just going to leave it for now. I will deal with that pain if I need to cross that bridge later, but for now, I'm just going to let it go. 30 seconds in. It's a 6-minute track going through. And we're just looking for anything that's really out, because so far this looks pretty good. I have, okay, this is going to bug me because I have a feeling I'm going to eat my words if I don't do this. So what we're going to do, we're going to start again. You can hear someone at home cheering right now because they know what's happening. So we're going to go start at the beginning again. We're going to look for that first kick drum transient that's kind of low because there's a bit of a pickup. That one. I'm going to take this. I'm going to bring this down. I think -10's probably good. I'm going to bring it down -6 just using clip gain. So just a little bit of a variation there. If we hold command, we can get more finely adjust our levels and stuff. And double click that. I'm going to hit Shift Option 3 to make a new clip. So this is now our quieter kick drum clip. I'm going to use the grabber tool. So when we come across those again, we can quickly just drop in. If everything works out, we can quickly just drop in our kick drum that's a little bit quieter to get that pickup there. I think it's going to make a difference. So it's one of them's right here. You can just paste that in. It's only 6 dB difference. The other one's pretty aggressive, but I don't want to have it that much, I don't think so. Yeah, I feel like I'd be eating my words later if I didn't do this when we're going through it. And if we need to adjust it more, we'll figure that one out, but it should be pretty good in the track. So again, the amount of work that's going to go into what we're doing here, I think it's going to make a decent amount of difference. That being said, it's not uncommon to just automatically go through and put our triggers in for kicks, snares, and all the toms and whatnot. So there's a lot of drum prep that can happen at the very beginning. Drum prep and vocal prep, I can't stress it enough. I think it makes the biggest difference for a lot, especially if you have live drums. Especially if you have live drums. All right, we are a minute into a 6-minute song. This is easy compared to dropping the samples in 2 because we're just kind of tabbing through all the clips here. That being said, if you think there's an easier way to do this, or you know an easier way to do this, feel free to do that. Do the way that you trust. That's what it gets down to. Lucky so far, nothing too out. All right, minute 20 in. We're getting there. If you have any questions, now's a good time. I can do this without actually thinking. Okay, that one's a little bit out. You can see this wants to go down, that's going up there. So what we can do, because we're in slip mode, so we can go in between everything, we can just click and just drag that over. Match it up. Simple as that. Don't lose too much sleep over it, in my opinion, as far as phase locking stuff. That one's out a little bit, so just pull that over. That one's out a little bit. Minute 41 in. By having these nice little short samples as well that we're using to trigger the kick drum samples, it's a lot easier to work with them. You don't need to fade anything. For the longest time, we were using reels, like actual samples. And they'd have the tail of the sample, like the tail of the kick drum, and you have to go through and kind of fade that stuff after. That, to me, was more tedious than what we're doing right now. And that's why I prefer to use programs like Trigger. I'm not selling the program right now, but I prefer to use programs like that do the retriggering for you, because then the tails will make sense as far as like the decay for the actual sound. That's out. On a personal note, watch the the men's hockey game last night, Canada, or yesterday morning, Canada versus Sweden, was heartbreaking. They gave it their all. Sweden was good. Sweden played amazing defense, but it was a bit heartbreaking to see it because I imagine some of the players, if not probably all the players on that team, I think maybe a couple have played for Team Canada Olympics before, but probably that's like the biggest, opportunity on that stage they were going to get. The door was open. But then again, it's like all the other teams that are in, it's the same thing. But for the not having the NHLers in the Olympic competition, opened the door for a lot of people. So it's probably a pretty long car ride home. Not that you could drive back from China, but pretty long car ride home as far as like emotionally speaking for a lot of the players and stuff like that. But they gave their best. It was a good game. Sweden played amazing defense. There was no pressure on the women's team. Hockey's kind of a big deal in Canada, depending on where you're watching this in the world. Like, it's like a really big deal, actually. All right, we're 2 minutes, 20 seconds in. I'd be listening to, like, new music and demos and just things off to the side. Usually have something on, even if I'm just working and editing, especially if I'm, timing drums. I kind of don't need to listen to the drums that much because I can see the waveforms. I kind of know what's happening. There's definitely times to listen critically, but there's also times where I'm like, it's fine. That being said, if I was watching a show like Ozark, I'd probably be spending like 2 hours on this because every once in a while I'd probably be just looking over at the TV because things would be happening. What is this? Okay, that is a kick drum, but it's a tiny little kick drum. Things like that. I just want to have a listen back a little bit. Okay, I think that is the smaller kick drum, so we should be good. Back to the grabber tool. Oh, all the F keys or function keys at the top, they can access your different modes and your different tools as well. That's why I don't like using the smart tool. I never have. I don't think I ever will. If it works for you, fantastic. It does not work for me. I'd rather bash around on the keys to have the tool that does the one job. So they tried to teach us the smart tool, which covers everything when we're in school doing this. And the instructor, I remember he walked by and he was like, "Oh, you should be using the smart tool." And then he saw me editing and he's like, "I'm gonna just keep walking because you're doing fine." Because I'm quick enough to go between the different tools using the function keys or the F keys. So I do remember that was funny. Funny to me, at least. I was doing a lot of editing in Pro Tools already then. I think we spent about a half an hour on this kick drum so far. Not uncommon. You can just throw trigger right onto the track and it'll grab some transients. But this to me is a little bit more specific about what you want it to do and how you want it to perform, and not be wondering if there's any missed triggers or like it's just missing any of the spots we want it to throw the kick drum in. Just checking that looks fine. Okay, we're 3 minutes in now, so I think I would consider this the home stretch. That we can get. Nice thing too about having these what we're using to trigger off of, if you do want to drop stuff in, just copy the quieter sample, and then you can just use grabber tool and just paste over top of it, and it should be fine. And because we have that space at the top of the song as well, we can drop in this other sample that we have, the quieter one. Carmen says, yes, watching you in class was a bit intimidating. You were always so fast, and that's when it's that you're not worthy moments. This makes a lot of sense how you get silky smooth finish. Well, there's a lot of parts. There's a lot of pieces that go into production, but just being able to clean up sources, I think, makes a huge difference to the end product. And again, we all hear differently. I've been told in the same day something is the best thing they've heard me do and something is the worst thing they've heard me do. And I remember wrong button. I remember I laughed at that because like that is the truth, because you know, one person's trash, another man's treasure, another person's treasure sort of thing. And like, that's really what it gets down to. Just, it has to just sound good to you. And I've been, been thankful. I've worked hard and I've worked with some great projects and they've turned out pretty good. But I just remember that day in particular, the person was like, this is the worst thing I've heard you do. Like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know. We liked it. And then someone else been like, this is the best record you've made yet. And I'm like, I don't know. We just liked it. So, but yeah, you might spend a full day just doing prep with some mixes and then actually get to it. The last mix we did, the Alan Stone mix we did last week, being a live recording, like we could have dropped some samples and stuff, but because there's so much drums and everything, especially there's so much drums in the vocals, it kind of didn't make that much sense for what we were hearing. But with this track and the quality of it, also I refer to it as genre sensitivity, where there's certain things that you might be expecting with something that's more of a soul R&B, rock track. I think there's a lot more leeway when it comes to the low lows and the high highs when it comes to the sonics. But when it comes to like metal and, rock and stuff like that, we usually need to hear those lower frequencies need to be there. Probably butchered what I was trying to explain there, but feel like I messed up my sample. 1 second. Just gonna go back and load up the old sample paintbrush again. There we go. If you accidentally hit copy instead of paste, it's gonna copy instead of paste. All right, we're 4 minutes, almost 20 seconds in. I've done the thing again where I've accidentally copied. Just going back to my sample. There it is. So imagine you're a band or an artist and you're watching all this stuff happening and you're paying, I don't know, $100 an hour for your studio time. And then all the money for all the engineers and stuff. Gotta move that one over. And this is what they're doing. So we do all this stuff when the band or the artist is not around because it's going to drive them insane if they're seeing this is happening. That being said, on larger productions, especially back in the before times, working on stuff where there's several people working. So you might have an editor just timing drums and dropping samples and stuff while you're tracking the next song. So you could have a producer, mixer, and an editor or two, all helping kind of save time by being able to work simultaneously. If you're one person operation, this is when things really slow you down. If you have an editor or an assistant that can be prepping files while you're working on something else, that's going to save you time. You'll be able to leverage that, because if there's only one of you, then, I could have, if you had two assistants, you could have one person doing the vocal prep, another person doing the drum prep, and then you can just bring all the files into your main or your master session. And so and something that might take you a day might take the two other editors, 2 or 3 hours working at the same time. And then it's done. It's ready to go. So a lot of value. Shout out to all the editors out there. They know what they do. All right. 4 minutes, 50 seconds. We are getting there. And again, I would do this on kick drums, snare drums, the toms. Maybe after a while I'll do this stuff off to the side, not actually do this live. But at the same time, I don't mind letting everyone else feel the pain that this stuff can be. Before times 2, we would have like several kick drum samples that we would bring in instead of using a program to trigger off. We would just have actual, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 other kick drum samples we would have. And keeping all that stuff aligned and whatnot, way more difficult than what we're about to do. Maybe one of those. So we've moved maybe like 8 that were that far off as far as the phase is concerned. Again, phase being, whether this is pushing in the speaker or pulling out the speaker. So that's all we're doing at the end of the day. We're just moving air. I did the thing again. I accidentally copied when I wanted to paste. There we go. All right, we're over the 6-minute mark. Home stretch. Home stretch. Kick drums are easier than snare drums. Toms, usually only a handful spots. But toms, oh, there, we're done. We're into the abyss. But with toms, because some of the patterns can be really fussy, most, like 80% you can get done in like 10 minutes, and then there's this one pattern with like a floor tom thing, and you can't really see what's going on. As soon as you put the sample in, you need to just commit to fixing all of it. That can be a thing. But same thing with toms. Like we can zoom in and like there's 2 toms there. They sound pretty clean though, so you can go through and do those. I'm not going to do this here, but you're seeing all those kick drums that we laid in. So if we were to go through, so this is the normal kick drum track. And then we've laid in samples here. So we're just sampling off of that. I'm going to go ahead and grab this kick drum here as well. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the song. So I'm going to hit return. I'm going to drop that sample here as well. So we have our higher sample and we have our lower sample that's there. If I was to go back in time, I would probably clip gain this up a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's clean. That's all that matters for what we're trying to do. So we've got our kick drum sample here. What we're going to do is go in plugins. Got to figure out where it is. So it should be, maybe just search it. Again, I use what's it called? I have like templated stuff. So here's our plugin here. So this is trigger 2. So what we're going to do is, so we're running this on the track. It's hearing all of those kick drums that are there. See, it missed the ones that were a little bit lower there. But every time it sees this, it's going to trigger a sample. I'm going to see what I have actually in here. I have some old band stuff in here. What do I want to use? Let's see, main rock kick. Oh, just grab that one for now. So we got some samples here. So that's one of the kick drum samples. A little bit of room right there. So there's a few samples that we can work with here. So when this is going by, we'll put this in bypass. And if we take it off bypass, so those are all the times it wants to trigger the sample. So if we take it off bypass, if it doesn't want to make me a fool. So now we got that kick drum sample that's there. It's missing some of those pickups there, so we'll just bring this, I don't remember which one it is. There we go. Bring that down. Again, I don't usually mix in headphones, so. So that's our kick drum. That's from the mic kick drum. And if we just turn this up, I can just hold control. Give me a second. I'm going to hop out of the headphones. I just want to check something because I can't hear what... I don't trust what I'm hearing right now. Let's be right back. Okay, so dropping in those kick samples, it already sounds better to me in the speakers. But now I'm really hearing the lack of stuff that could be going on with that snare drum. So it'll be one of those things where I might drop that in after, but we'll see. We could do it to see if it works way. So I'm just going to duplicate our snare track. And I'm just going to drop on trigger 2 onto that as well. That's going to change. That's fine. So we'll actually inactivate or deactivate that. We're going to call this snare. Again, I usually underscore to let me know that there's a sample or a trigger that's going on. So we're bringing this over. we just use one of my presets here. We'll just go to rock snare. And just some different sounds here. If you want to add your own sounds, you can just go to the browser and we can just look for. This should automatically play it. Audition on. If you want different sounds and stuff, you can bring in your own as well. So I brought in a couple that I have. Where I think this helps the most really is toms. Find some toms that sound good with the kit, and you can trigger off of those, and they can sound fantastic for drum fills and stuff like that. We'll see if we can do this the kind of again, the lazy way, which is I wouldn't do it this way, but we'll bring up our detail all the way up here. So it's pretty well recorded. I'm also curious now, maybe we can put an EQ in behind this. I know there's a yeah, you can do the high cut and low cut here if you want to hear what's happening. I haven't messed around with this too much though. We'll bring the detail down. One thing we can do, because it's a little bit low, we can actually just go to the actual track here and just clip gain it up a little bit. It's missing all of those fills, so let's just go focus over here. Got to fuss around with this a little bit. Again, I usually just put my triggers in. So missed all that. It's okay to miss some of them, but you might get some missed triggers here and there. So let me hop out of the headphones again one more time. Okay, so we've added a little bit of body using that snare in there. It's sounding okay. I put that limiter on there just because there's a couple snare drums that were really loud. So I'm like, maybe I can just hack off the top of the transient with the limiter. I think it's working. We'll go with there. Again, I would normally go through and drop all the samples in by hand like we did with the kick. Could we get away with maybe just dropping trigger on? Probably, because it's nice and clean. But this, when I drop the samples in, I know that it's correct. If we really needed to save time, then yeah, maybe just drop trigger in and just deal with anything that might be having a problem later on. I would still recommend, instead of just dropping it right on the actual track, I would duplicate it. That way, if you need to make any changes to it, you can just go onto the track and edit the track. Again, you might be trying to pick hairs out of the spaghetti sauce sort of thing. But if you just drop your samples in, it's a lot easier. But for what we were doing with that snare track, if we were short on time, I would do what I just did, where you just drop trigger on. I was just curious about maybe... You can clean it up a little bit, but I think it's fine. All right, that sounds not too bad. So without the samples, just make it with. Adding a little bit of body to it. Again, we're just still getting pieces together here. We haven't rebalanced stuff. I love this part. I love the little change up on the groove. I would normally go through and do the toms as well, but they're coming through enough for me that they're not bugging me. I think we did enough EQing on them to kind of carve them out. They should be okay. Like, this part sounds better to me. I'm actually gonna put a different compressor on the rooms there. 11.6 on it. I keep getting served ads for this compression saturator thing called Loch Ness Monster, and I kind of want to mess with it because it looks pretty cool. Yeah, I'm crushing this right now. I realize that. All right, so we are like 2.5 hours in. We've prepped some vocals. We've added all those kick drums in. You got to see how that actually goes down. We messed around with Trigger a little bit. I'm going to go out of my headphones for a second. I'm going to mess around on my speakers for 10 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes. Just kind of rebalancing and just seeing where we're at. And I kind of want to mess around with our main output chain a little bit because I just don't really know what's happening in the headphones on that. So I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm just going to do stuff for a little bit, just listening on speakers. I'm gonna mess around with the vocals a little bit. So if you're following along, let's get my headphones off. So I added a few more things to our master output here, our main output. Adjusted the, yeah, I'll start here. Adjusted the threshold on our compressor here. There's lots of different compressors you can use. The SSL one's pretty widely used. The API 2500 is widely used. I usually use the Sony Oxford one, or I'll use this one again. This is just the stock channel strip. Coming off of the aggressive snare drum, I just use that, and then I deactivate the EQ section on the channel strip. So I had that on. I just got this J37 from Waves here. It's one of those things where it's like, you get a free plugin. It's like, okay. So I just got that one. I just flip around some presets. The Abbey Road preset, excuse me, I think sounds pretty good. You can get a little bit more saturation out of it, but it just does something at the top end for me over here. I'm using NS10s as well, in case you're wondering. So I use that just to widen it a little bit. I actually haven't brought my setting over that I use on other sessions, because again, it's on basically on my templates I bring over. So I was just messing around with this, but this helps just kind of widen things, but also give a little bit more focus to the middle. To me, this helps create space. There's a bunch of different widening tools, but this one helps create some space for vocal, which we haven't put in yet. But also I just threw my limiter on there. I usually put it at 0.2, minus 0.2 for the ceiling, and then just bring it back down. We're realistically going to be putting a limiter on at the end anyways. So usually about, 75% of the way through, I'll just put that on there just to make sure we're not crushing anything. If I need to rebalance stuff too, I have no problem with flattening my whole mix and rebalancing. Bliss, it's here. How's it going, Parm? I said, NS10s, do you have to sell your soul to get a pair? No. Quick story about my NS10s. They came up online, I think, for $450 or $350. I saw it pop up on Craigslist years ago, and I messaged the person selling, and I said, hey, definitely interested. Where are you located in the city? Heads up, these are way undervalued, so I'm wondering if there's anything wrong with them. They messaged me back and said, you're the only person that messaged me back, because they got a lot of responses. You're the only person that messaged me back that said that I'm selling them undervalue. So they're yours. So we actually came up with a higher price. I think I paid $5 for them. Yeah. I think it was $5 for them. And he said he was just going to take them to L&M, and L&M was just like, sell them on the market and you'll get better money for it, sort of thing. But they were actually just used. NS10s are bookshelf speakers, and they were actually just used by this person's father to just listen to music. So, yeah, that's how I got my NS10s. But you can get NS10s for, $700, $1,000, but they need a power amp for them. That's another $1,000 to say the least. That being said, do I encourage anyone to get NS10s these days? No, I do not. 100%, I do not say get NS10s, because even on my KRK Rocket 6s, and even when I'm on other active studio monitors, I hear things that I'm like, I do not hear that where I am. I've just been working on my NS10s now for, well, even at the older studio, we're probably getting close to 20 years, at least 17 years. So, but it says, darn great find it was. I would love a pair. Callus are great, but hard to beat them. I'm not sure what that one is. I like Adams a lot. I love the Adams series stuff, and then Focals or Focals, depending on how much you spent on them. I love those ones as well. Where was I at here? So I threw my limiter on. That noise, that's from that. That's from the tape machine. I don't know if you can turn off. You can, oh, there you go. You can turn off the noise level. There's other, plus says check out Kali Cool Brain. I will check that out. I'm always curious. So you can add more noise, less noise. If you want it to sound like it's a really old recording, you can do that. We can turn that down. I don't like noise in my recordings. Also, you can use a denoiser at the beginning of, I think on the last one, I didn't even bother checking on the tape machine there. I went over and just actually put a using isotope, just the denoise. I put that on there, take a sample, and then just blast it through. It's fine. So I did that. I messed around with the drums a little bit, just rebalanced them a little bit. I normally have a drum master, a back bus, and then a room for reverb and stuff. I'll do that on next session because there's gonna be a third one here because we're getting close to 3 hours on this. I'll add my room sound because I don't like a lot of the room microphones that I get for stuff. Reason being the sound of the drums in the room, the timing of the reverb is the room and the player. If I make my own reverb for the room, then I can time the size of the room to make it musical. And then it doesn't matter how the drummer was playing because we can just make the reverb sound the way it should be. One of the things I do encourage people to consider when you're adding any effects such as delays and reverb and stuff is time them to the song. When you time them to the song, it's going to make them sound a little bit more musical. When your song has a tempo change, we can automate the size of the room. We can actually move the walls of the room when we're working. So I like that. I think that's a better use of technology. Then again, some live off the floor recordings in some situations, it doesn't matter that much. It just sounds good. But I often think that a little bit of timing of the reverbs can make a big difference. So where are we at? I got a few more minutes. I wanted to put the vocal in. I know I haven't done a lot with the vocal sitting, and I'm just kind of getting the music and the band together. Again, the way that I set things up, my drums are on the bottom here. Vocals are at the top, so once we get up to the vocals, we're just working on them sort of things. So I'm going to mess around with the vocals a little bit more with the headphones off because I haven't actually got a vocal sound together. So we did prep the vocal at the beginning, but I haven't really got a vocal sound together. Full disclosure, I have been mixing on my NS10s the last little bit since we've been working, but Parm, I've also been mixing on this little $60 waterproof ultra-glancing Bluetooth speaker, which I do have plugged into my system here, because I find if I can hear my kick and snare and vocal and stuff sitting on that, if I can hear everything else on the smaller speaker, it usually translates pretty good. So I do use that for balancing because of Fletcher-Munson curves. Depending on the volume or the loudness of your speakers, it's going to affect how your EQ is. But I used to use that on my laptop and use the speakers off that, but I blew those up. So unless I want to check the level of fart that the speakers are going to give me, the fartometer that my MacBook Pro is going to give me, I do use that little $60 speaker. So I do encourage people to have another set of speakers to A/B stuff on, at least two. Even your phone, if you just bounce a mix out to your phone, that works too. Calista says, little tiny boy use AirPods sometimes. Yeah, exactly. Listen where people are actually listening, and most people are not listening on decent speakers. Real talk. People are not listening for the most of the time on real speakers. So I'm going to hop out of here for a second and just mess around with the vocal, just get that in so I've got a starting point for next time. I'll be back on Monday. Apparently Monday's a holiday, so we'll figure that one out. I was trying to do Mondays and Thursdays, and it's like Mondays have been not the best day so far as far as holidays and stuff. So, all right, be right back. I'm just going to listen with the vocal a little bit.
The silent sleepy moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. And the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes in partial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the deepest purple seas, just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forgive. Seas might not forget. The moon is rising high. The silent sleepy moon is rising high from the lonely deepest purple seas. Just the wind and waves and the air with salty sounds. In the waters of the sea, in passiveness and bliss. But the sea sometimes impartial might not forget. throat, my chest, my voiceless, my calling. There is only muted wind. I look for answers in the depths. I listen to my quick and aching breath. My silent song, my throat, my chest, my voiceless, my calling. There is only muted wind. I look for answers in the depths. I listen to my quick and aching breath. My silent song, my throat, my chest, my voiceless, my calling. There is only muted wind. I look for answers in the depths. I listen to my quick and aching breath. My silent song, my throat, my chest, my voiceless, my calling. There is only muted wind. I look for answers in the depths. I listen to my quick and aching breath. My silent song, my throat, my chest, my voiceless, my calling. There is only muted. I look for answers in the depths. I listen to my quick and aching breath. My silent song, my throat, my chest, my voiceless, my calling. There is only muted wind.
All right. Messed around with it a bit more. My ears are shot too because I was mixing kind of loud for a bit. Normally I would step away for a little bit. But I think I got something going again. Bliss was saying they did the vocals with the dynamic mic. It does sound like a dynamic mic because you're missing the top end sizzly bits. Hard to get sizzle without some heavy saturation. That's definitely one way. Another trick that I picked up. Is that Pultec? Not Pultec. Throw it on 10 or 12 and boost there and throw the cut on 20. And sometimes you can get a little bit of that definition out of there. And I remember, shout out, you know who you are. I remember I was doing some vocal stuff and he's like, I know what you're trying to do, but you're going about it wrong. Use the Pultec. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And as soon as I used it, I was like, every record I made before then, I was like, I wish I could just go back in time. And I'd go back like Back to the Future style. I don't have the glasses with me right now. They're somewhere else. But with like the glasses on and like spacesuits so that I don't realize that it's me. And I would just hand them a printout of the Pultec plugin and be like, this is your future. Just use this. And it'll make it sound a lot better. I hear you, though. It's definitely dynamics versus condenser mics. 19 times out of 20, I'm using dynamics because I'm doing a lot of rock stuff if I'm recording vocals, and usually loud singers, and it just sounds a little bit better to me since the mix a bit better. But that being said, there's condenser mics can sound fantastic on vocals as well. I did mess around with Decapitator, just putting some distortion on there. Also, that's kind of one of my tricks sometimes. If it sounds better, it'll sound better right away. If it sounds worse, I just live with it for a second. And then when I take that off, I can usually hear the definition of the vocal a little bit better just by kind of mucking it up a bit. But I think overall, I'm liking where this is sitting right now. Again, thinking usually 2, 3, or 4 parts for some of these songs, but we did spend a lot of time doing some vocal prep today. And not a long time, that's really normal what we did, but we spent, I'd say half of the 3-hour session today doing vocal prep. And then I dropped in all those kick samples so people at home could see what it looks like when you're dropping that stuff in. Because before we had triggering programs, we would go in and drop in all those samples, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different kick samples so that we could mix and match after. Now we've got plugins like Trigger 2 where we can quickly go in and drop in our kick samples. I've got my music turned down. Where you can drop in our kick samples really quickly because I wanted the low end. I was missing that. I was missing that in the song, so I got that now. It sounded pretty good to me. Last thing I would do, there's always a couple last things I would do, but Shift Command U, Shift Command B. This removes anything in our session that we do not need. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to say Save Copy In. All audio files. Go here. I'm going to go to this. Temp backup, that's here. And then I just .bu is what I do for that stuff. And this takes the whole session and copies it over. That's how I like doing my backups. Again, if you only have your stuff in one spot in digital, assume that it's nowhere and assume that one day you will get bitten by the bug that will take your files to digital heaven, which is what we don't want. Hopefully you found something educational today and something entertaining today. It's, again, this is all the behind the scenes stuff I want to share with people. And again, there is 101. 101. There we go. 101 different ways to approach mixes, to approach what we're doing. And again, I'm not here. All my stuff's all over the place now. I'm not here to tell you what you should do. I'm here to tell you what you could do, or show you what you could do. Because again, it sounds good to me. That's what we're trying to accomplish sometimes. It's like all of my cameras are all over the place now. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I will be back Monday, hopefully. If not, because Monday is another holiday apparently. So I'll be back Monday if I can. Again, I'm aiming to do Monday evenings and Thursday afternoons, showing a mix approach to these things. So this is bothering me so much. There we go. There we go. Aiming to do a mix approach on these songs. Again, the song we've been working on today by a band called Violent Bliss from Russia. The song is called Voiceless Siren. If you're interested in these tracks, there's a fantastic web resource, educational purposes. It's called Cambridge Music Technology. And that's where I got all these tracks from. So if you are a mixer and you're looking for stuff to practice on, or if you're an engineer and you're looking for tracks to work on, or also be able to see the tracking, because that's one of the things that I think is undervalued, seeing other engineers work. Because there's a lot of value in being able to hear some of the tones and where they were able to get them with their mix. So that's where I'm getting them. The details are below in the YouTube video if you're curious. Once again, my name has been... Not that my name has been. My name is Mike Langford. I'm producer, engineer, mixer, based out of Toronto, Canada. This has been Let's Mix Live. Carmen says, always a blast. Thanks again. Thank you, Carmen, for tuning in. Thanks for everyone tuning in the chat. And I'll actually, shameless plug. If you want to help support the channel, just remember to subscribe here to know when we go live, and also to catch up on past videos, because some of them can be mighty long. We're already at 3 hours and 10 minutes here. Hopefully no one had Zoom calls today for work. Thanks for joining, Katie. So thanks for the stream. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your day, Katie. Parm, thanks for dropping on here, and thanks for the input and hanging out in the chat. Got to catch up soon, Parm. Got to catch up soon. All right, that's my time before I start rambling. Talk to you later.